Okay, so we just completed two rounds, round four and round five. So this is the wrap-up video for these two rounds, and we only have one round left before the simulation is over. And we can see here that this is net profits by team. You can see how we started out at the 50,000 or the $50 million level here, and we've gradually graduated to most people over the $200 million level, and we have one team here at the $300 million level, fantastic, and we have a couple teams here close to 250 million. So we have, a good amount of teams um, who've developed a huge amount of profits. And this is by, we have some teams still under 100 million. So that those teams need to look to the teams who have been focusing on profit to get an idea of what are these companies been doing? How are they able to get three times the amount of profits I have? That would be a key and critical thing to look at. Now, if you look at overall points, the majority of the class is between 400 and 500 points. That's about 80% of the class or higher is between the ideal 400 to 600 points. And we have a couple teams poking up over, here's one team 717, um, 626 vote points. So you could see that, people, no one lost any points. So far in this game, nobody's lost any points, and that has happened where points can be negative. So we see a good run up on points here. And then if we look at the stock price, it's a real breakout here. We still have this team in first place in the stock price, but we have everybody went up tremendously in stock price, and we do have some changing over a few teams, rising above a couple other teams here. But we could see that from our $5 a share to close to $160 a share for the top team. We've definitely been improving our stock price, which means investors are liking what the companies are doing because companies are expanding revenues, they're increasing profits. This is what all an investor can ask. Increase your profits, increase your earnings per share, increase your revenues, and that's what keeps investors happy. If we look at sales, now we had a really dramatic increase for this company in sales. So the sales at this company, they got their forecasting right, and their sales went up dramatically. I would just recommend that they also focus on profits, and then they'll have a tremendous turnout next round if the profits can go up as fast as the sales. And we had a couple teams here where sales were flat, which that does happen sometimes if your forecast is the same. But remember, we have a tremendous growth in this market. And as we get towards the end of the game, since these 30%, 25%, and 20% intervals of growth, depending on the different cars, as we're working off a bigger and bigger base, sales are going to go up faster and faster. So we just want to make sure that we can forecast. And we know the top sales. Over 1 billion in sales we reached, which is tremendous in the fifth round. So that is, I would look to that company to see how to issue sales. Now we had a sort of an upset here in earnings per share. Back on top, Roby Motors back on top with earnings per share of $26, and Star Cars at 26.19 and 26.72 for Roby Motors. So we have sort of a changing of the earnings leadership in that was, an extreme focus on profits here. So we have a lot of companies that, change their status, their overall ranking in earnings per share here. And we have four teams close to the bottom here that really need to assess. These four teams down here really need to assess, maybe they need to buy back some stock. Maybe they need to look at their gross margin percentages. And we'll check that out in the overall. Let's look at the overall rankings here. Okay, so the overall rankings for the class, the points for the current round, we've had, majority, two-thirds of the class get, two-thirds or more of the class get between the 400 and 600 points. So that's really good. And you'll see that the top teams, the two top teams in earnings per share, or actually the three top teams in earnings per share, their profit margins are now in their gross profit margins are now in the 60 percentile, which, basically the way I look at this game is every round, your gross profit should be in a percentile of that round. So by round 4, you should be in the 40 to 50%, and in round 5, the 50 to 60%, and round 6, 60 to 70%, and the last round that we're working on now, you should end up hopefully somewhere in the 70 to 80 percentile in gross profits. And we'll see here that more than half the teams are in that ideal range of above. They're in the 5th round, they ended up with 50 percentile or higher in the gross profit. Anybody who is in the 40% area, you really have to work on this. The investors are not happy with this. The banks are not happy with this. You need to try and push your gross profits up percentages above 50% this round if you can. Okay, so in stock price, we can see we have a pretty big range of stock price here. Anybody who borrowed a terrific amount of equity by issuing new shares of stock needs to start retiring them. If you retire your stock, the money you put in stock, that'll help the lower the amount of outstanding shares and increase your earnings per share. All right. Now, as far as total points, we could see that at least half the class is complete right on track to getting those. I believe. Let's see. How much? Okay, so many teams are right in range of getting the full 20 points for the assignment by getting the 3,000 points, and most everybody is still capable of getting at least 18 points or higher, by getting the 2nd tier level. So everybody's still in range to get an A on this project. Now remember, even if you did poorly in the last round, you could still bounce back strongly. And I've seen teams come in with 100 points one round and then bounce back 800 points the next round. And the key is to focus on your forecast, make sure they're accurate. Focus on your profits. Retiring some debt, retiring some stock will help greatly. Definitely. Okay, so let's see. So you also, besides the gross profits, you also want to look at your operational profits, and we see that most teams lose about 10 to 20% going from gross to operational profits, and that's because of your marketing and advertising. So you want to analyze that and say, are you over advertising? Are you getting is it worth it to spend all the extra money in advertising? Are you only picking up 50 more cars, for $1 million of extra spending? That you want to look at. I'm not exactly sure. I guess you could go into the charts. There's one that says advertising and sales, and you could see how much you spent in your advertising compared to competitors, and look at your overall, in the industry page, you can look at your overall demand compared to them. Also here in the net profit margin, this is going to be, you can't really control this area too much. It's going to be a lot of taxes and any interest. The only way to improve this, I guess, if you had a lot of debt, to start paying back your debt, that will decrease your interest and will increase your net profit margins. Okay. All right, so that's the basic overview there. All right, so we just have one round left. Let's do this Friday. And most people by now, you should know what you're doing pretty well. I do have office hours today, Wednesday from 1 to 2. If there's any questions on the simulation you want to talk about, I can help you work with as best I can. All right. Okay, I'm just going to run through my practice round 6 just to give you an idea of what I'm going to do. Now, I left off with my profit margins in the 60% range, 60%, I think 61%. So I'm going to go ahead and redesign my cars here. And I'm going to just punching in numbers to see where I am. Okay, so 72%. So I definitely are going up in profit margins, and I'm going to increase my sales significantly here for the last round. Now, one way I can go, I've already done the research for the forecast. And I'm just going to, punch some numbers in here. Okay, 63, that's kind of low. 67, okay, 72, okay, so too low on that. All right, so 70%, and then let's see the truck. Now the truck to so 71% on the truck. Now I'm going to actually, with the truck, I'm not going to forecast too aggressively because I'm going to probably try and cut back on some advertisements. And my truck isn't the most competitive. But what I'm trying to do here is, and again, I'm just putting this stuff in very quickly. And what I'm trying to do is develop a car that I can meet my profit margin goals on. I think I can sell 5,000 of these. All right, so I am sacrificing some sales in order to make my goals. Okay, so now in the marketing and advertising, I see that the ranges, the advertising expectations ranges have increased. So I would go into my charts here, and this is a critical area for a lot of research you do. And the first thing that you should do is go down here and see where, last round I could have sold 76.64, so I definitely have to increase my sedans, and so I'm thinking my sedans I could sell about 9,000. My luxury I could sell probably 7,000. Truck and economy class I'm good on, so I really need to adjust my forecast. And then I would go into the sales and advertising, and I would see where I am. I'm sort of low. Okay, so I was happy with, let's see, my advertising was low or in the middle or lower than most, higher on the total advertising because of the economy. And if I look in the industry, I could see what my percentages are, 33, 34, and I guess that is better than the other teams. So I don't really need to overspend on my marketing and waste a lot of marketing dollars. So I'm going to keep my marketing tight by looking at how the other companies marketed, how much I spent in relationship to them, and my demand percentages. Because if you find yourself spending in the top range or more than most, and your demand percentages aren't only 1 to 2% higher, then you're overspending, and that's wasting a lot of operational profit margins. Okay, so I'm going to need to go back to the sales department, and I'm going to need to bump up I need to bump this up by 1,000, and I'm going to bump up my luxury by, I think I can hit 1,000 on this. Okay, so I increased my forecasts on this, and I'm going to go right to the production department. And I'm going to have to make a significant investment in plants because I was under forecasting, which is going to cost me a lot of money, so I hope that doesn't affect me too much. All right, and I've already maxed out my operational investments in the last round, and that was be able to I could get the in the sales department, I can get this full $12,000 deduction, operational cost reduction. That's how I'm able to get this 70% profit margin. If you haven't been investing in your operational cost reductions, you really don't have much of a chance to make it in round 6 if you haven't made significant investments in this all along during the simulation. So if you look at my finance department here, I see I have actually really big, really large surplus. So I'm going to go ahead and buy back, going to retire as much funds as possible, and I can do 50% of what I have, and this is going to help reduce my interest and improve some of my ratios by reducing my overall amount of debt and the outstanding equity, and help increase my earnings per share. And I think I'm ready to go and process this round, and see I did on points. Okay, wow, 1,000 points. So there you go. From round 5 to 6, because I was able to focus on my profit margins, I got my profit margins from 56 to 70%. And I got my operational margins from 26 to 50% by cutting back on my advertising, making it as effective as possible. And I was able to increase my net profit margins by reducing my debt. And since I reduced my debt, my quick ratio and debt ratios improved a great deal. My sales went up 82% because I was focused a little bit more on my forecast. Um, my equity multiplier. This equity multiplier is difficult. This is a ratio that um, is a difficult one to really improve, even when everything's great, because it's looking at when I reduce my debt and increase my equity, it's going to slow down my return on equity, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's a difficult one to really earn points. And as you can see here, I earn points just about everywhere but that. But the trick here is not to lose a lot of points. Okay, so my return on equity, my earnings per share, my return on assets all increased about 100%. And my forecasts, I didn't lose any, I only lost 8 points in my forecast. Remember, the forecasting area, you're not trying to make points, you're just trying to prevent yourself from losing points. My book value went up, my market cap. So here I hit 1,000 points in my last round. And if I look at the charts, you could see that by focusing on my profits and my sales, I was greatly able to increase my net profits, my total sales dramatically, my earnings per share, my points earned, and my forecasts. Even with the sedans, I could have sold 93. Good thing I went back to look at my last year's market potential and saw that I could have boosted it up, and I increased it by 2,000 units. I would have missed the sales on 2,000 units. And I could have sold 4,600 more trucks. Okay, so I came in a little bit lower, but that's okay. I rather not have extra inventory in the last round, and I rather, greatly improve my sales and things like that. So by focusing on my forecasts and my profit margins, I was able to, definitely excel past the competitors in that last round. And you can see even I didn't even beat Computer Player 1 in net profit. So Computer Player 1 is still stronger, but I did beat it in total points and my stock price. Um, Although I didn't even get the most amount of sales. Computer Player One still had higher sales than me, so I can learn a lot from this computer player. But since I bought back my stock, I definitely were able to push up my stock price a much higher, much quicker. So okay, so that would be my advice from you for completing round six, and I hope that you can also get 1,000 points in round six uh, to get that score you want in the simulation. But it's all about doing what real companies do, focusing on sales, making sure your gross margins increase, not just operationally, but and net operation and gross profit margins increase, focusing on getting your sales right, maximizing your sales, and just making your company as efficient as possible. And that would be my advice for doing well in the last round. I wish you the best of luck, and we'll see um, by Saturday night who is the top team in the class. And I just want to remind everybody that in the simulation, there is no extra credit in the class except for, as I said in a couple different videos, I have been monitoring and looking at your reflective observations. And I have them all backed up here when let's see, in my view of my results, I get a screen that backs up everyone's reflective observations. And some teams, most people have been good about filling these out. I'm going to review every round in the entirety, and if I feel that your team had the best reflective observations, I think the two teams I feel had the best, most generous, most reflective of their observations will receive 2 points of extra credit. So there's still a chance, even if you don't get the top points in the last round, if you have been working well on your reflective observations and really show me a great showing in this last round, there's still a chance to get some extra credit out of this simulation assignment. Okay, so that's all for me today. I hope you enjoy this and it's helpful, and I will talk to you soon.